welcome back to another Coach Dave Academy lap guide video. Today I'll be taking you for a lap in the Super Formula Lights car around the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit. Here's my hot lap. All right, heading down the main straight, or the Hamilton straight, as it's called now at Silverstone, into the first corner, Abbey. Not a corner in this car. Not much to say apart from on this model, the entry curb here is a bit bumpy if you go on it. So just don't go on it because it can like upset the car and kill a bit of speed and maybe damage the floor. So just don't touch it. Turn in. Don't get a dumb off track. Again, it's easy flat, so you shouldn't need to get an off track by cutting the inside. Just right tires on the black and white. Smooth as possible on the steering. Leave a little bit of room to the left-hand side. Just clip the curb. If you go like really aggressively on this curb all the way around, you can start getting a little bit of movement on the rear end. Again, unnecessary. Just be smooth. You can gain about half a tenth here just in being nice with your wheel movements, and then prepare the car fully to the left for Village, our first braking zone on the lap. Braking reference the 50-meter board just before that, well past the end of the curb, please. So about here. Really hard and fast braking zone this. All the time to gain is on the entry. There's no exit of Village in terms of the distance. It's all about the entry. So just push the brake as much as you can. Very hard here, the brakes. Aggressive. Keep it straight as long as you can. Dive off the brakes down to third gear. You can try second. I think third, especially running more downforce, is the way to go here. But second maybe to start with potentially. Pick up the throttle. Again, more picking up the throttle to settle the rear here. Main thing is that you're just attacking that entry all the way into Village. And now to turn forward the loop. Trying to get back to the right as much as you can. Realistically, you're not going to get fully back to the right. I don't think it's like super vital in a car this light. If you can be somewhere around here, you can see I'm pointing towards this orange part of the barrier, but really every time through here is a bit different, right? You just really try to push the braking at Village. You shouldn't be able to get to that inside curve, not easily anyway. And then here, try and get at least past the halfway mark of the center of the track when you're braking into the loop. All right, braking down to second gear. Be careful with when you do that change. It can upset the rear quite a bit if it's too early, so be aware of that. As much lock as quickly as possible. So try to get the car turned as soon as possible so we can get the lock off as soon as possible. That's how you get a strong exit here. You can see I have a lot of lock on at the moment. I'm just trying to really quickly get it turned. In this case, I just misheamed the sausage curb. If you try to stop and turn the car as much as possible and you're going to hit inside curb, you have to go deeper. You shouldn't be turning out. If you're turning out, you're going in too early. All right. Use all the curb on the exit. Turn 5, aim tree, not a corner in this car. Be smooth. Again, don't get a silly off track on the inside. Leave the car on the right-hand side of the straight now into Brooklands. Try to use a bit of this entry curb here to open up the corner as much as possible. This is probably one of the only cars I've driven where it's more, hey, drive Brooklands in, say, an F1 car as opposed to like most cars where you have to brake and then come with the brake and turn in. And in this car, you're turned in well before you hit the brakes. You're so late here on the brakes, past the 50-meter board. So I'd be really aggressive. Important here, as I said, prepare by getting your right-hand side tires all over the entry curb, and your real apex that you're looking for is not here. It's about here somewhere. So try to look. It's difficult, but try to look to that point because it's just going to help give your brain some time to process and understand where you're actually trying to slow the car down for. All right. So you can see I'm still on the brakes. I'm still on the throttle. I'm past the turn board on the right. Really, I've left the curb at about the 50-meter board or so turning in. Now I'm going to brake. And when I brake, I want to try and be a little bit straighter on the steering. It's a bit tricky because, again, you're turning all the way in. But you do what you can to try and make the braking a bit more efficient. Even in this car, you can still lock up easily if you've got too much steering on when you're braking. Okay, down to fourth gear, you can see it's not a heavy brake. It's initially a little bit, and then bleed out because now I'm turning into the corner. Really carry a lot of speed in here. Fourth gear, left-hand tires over the black and white is what's best for me here. Easy to get an off track again here. The main way to avoid it is being late. If you're late, it's almost impossible. If you're braking early, turning in early, you're going to get an off track. It's pretty much when the middle of the car goes over the inside of the black and white. All right. On throttle, force the car to the right. The car should be forced out to the right-hand side and then just work it back as much as you can to get back to the to open up the angle for Luffield here. Third gear. It's a bit awkward in this car. I try different gears and all sorts of things here with setup, but you need second. I feel like in real life, it's usually third in a car like this, but you need second. It just doesn't accelerate out of the corner otherwise, and you're just too dead on the throttle. A bit of understeer as well. And even though it feels like you want to carry the speed in third, you've got to pull second here. So very soft brake into Luffield. Second gear, you don't want to be all over the inside curb, okay? You'll be on it at the start a little bit, let the car go out, down to second, put the lock on, rotate the car. As soon as you feel like you've got it turned, you can start to see that the exit curb out here somewhere on the throttle. And you can see I was only in second for a brief moment as well. Second, just to get that little bit of rotation, and there's that initial acceleration, just that initial bang out of the corner. That's what we need second for. Try not to get back onto the inside curb. I found it can upset the car a lot on throttle with a bit of wheel spin, so just watch out for that. If you're understeering, though, the inside curb is quite useful to hook the car around. Okay, let the car out, use all the curb on the exit, straight back to the right, shorten the distance, cut over the inside of woodcut here, as we can on iRacing because the curbs are super flat. All the way to the left-hand side here for cops. On the entry here, don't be slow to go back to the left. You're just creating risk. Be consistently on the end of the curb at that 100-meter board. You give yourself lots of time then to look for the apex for cops, which is really hard to see because at the moment, all we can see is the barrier and then here, and we're trying to get round further to hit the curb. So just focus on that. Okay, with the right setup, it should be flat. Depends a bit on conditions, and it will take a bit of practice. Start with a lift, maybe, and on cold tires as well. On the first lap, it's quite sketchy. So smooth in the steering here, okay? So smooth. You need to turn in slightly late, okay? If you turn a bit early and you hit the curb on a shallower angle, you'll bottom out a little bit, but also you kind of end up giving yourself a lot of work to do later in the corner. That's the most common mistake. People turn in a bit early here. Or maybe a bit aggressively, and then they're like this on the exit with all this lock on, and then they either they get a big snap because the rear tire just has too much load, the rear left, and it just snaps on them, or they just understeer off, and you're killing speed because you're scrubbing the tire for such a long distance. So really, really important here just to be smooth and patient. Okay, I aim for just the end of the curb. Ideally, just take the black and white part of the curb. You might get on the inside a bit. It helps turn the car. I don't think it'll give you floor damage, but it can cost you a little bit of time just because it bottoms a little bit if you put the floor over the curb. All right, smooth. See, I just let the car out with the steering here. Right-hand side of tires on the black and white, and left-hand side tires on the second curb is pretty much the limit here for track limits, so just watch out and try and bring it back. You can get one for hanging out a bit too late as well. Back over to the right, I like to really fully open up this section. I know some people don't. I think it's worth doing. Open it up all the way to the right for this entry to maggots. To the right, all the way to the left. The car needs to be parallel with the end of the curb here, maximizing the track at this point here. So straight for that. Turn in, nice and aggressive, not too sharp, but nice and aggressive. Late, try to get the angle here, okay? Again, the off track here is always when you take a shallow angle. If you're late, you'll avoid it. You're trying to meet the curb here, not here, okay? Not in a GT4 car. So you can meet the curb around here. It should be flat out, no problems. But the main thing here is it can be flat, but you can be out here. We want it to be flat out, but you end up over here. So you really open up the whole Maggots Beckett's Chapel section that we got coming up. You can see I'm over at the right-hand side of this newer tarmac patch here. Turning in now. Now I'm aiming for let's say my imaginary apex point is about here. End of the black and white again. We're trying to open up the last right. So just trying to get around the back end of this green part of the curb. Lifting just to get in. If you feel like if you turn in here and the car turns in too well, then you need to lift less, basically. You'll need to lift to get the car turned in. But if you feel like you need more front grip, lift more. If you feel like it turns in too well or too sharply, and you still got more front grip to go, try and lift more progressively. We're just trying to carry as much speed as possible while still making it here. Easy mistake to make is turning in. I do it all the time as well. You lift too much or too quickly. So you look at my throttle. I'm not diving off the brakes. I'm not trying to quickly hustle the car in. I'm just trying to delay that lift so that I get the car positioned here at this point. This is bang on what you want, okay? Just come out of the throttle, down to fifth, maybe a shave of the brake. I just tap it there to get turned in. It depends, again, on all sorts of tires, setup, track conditions. To start with, you might need fourth here, potentially. You may need fourth, but ideally should be fifth. And again, either a really small graze on the brakes or just a lift. Get it turned in. Right wheels on the black and white. Really easy to miss this turn. Give the car time. It's easy in iRacing. If you're too aggressive on the change of direction for the front tires, just scrub. So you see here, I give it a bit of time to get turned in. I can't hold it out too long. The tire will just give up. Okay, pick up the throttle pretty much when you're at that apex curve. As soon as you can, look up for the exit here. Pick up the throttle. The car's going to feel like it's going to go off, but it's got so much downforce. You're going to hold on. Watch out, because if I run a tire width to the left, I will get an off track here. Really shit off track. I don't know why it's here. So just watch out for that. All right, hold to the left-hand side of the track now. Just shorten the distance. Prepare yourself for Stowe that's coming up now. Not much to do. Okay, really late here. It is the main key because, yeah, you want to carry a lot of speed. That is obviously very important here. But if you're in early, you get a lot of understeer. And with this car, you can be in super late. So use the entry curve even for just track usage. Some cars you don't want to use it because it's bumpy. This car's so grippy, you can just use it anyway. And barely a brake. Look how much I brake here. 50 meter board. The softest touch on the brake. Barely anything at all. It's kind of unreal how fast this car can be in here, but that's just how fast the this era of F3 car is. In fifth gear, just meeting the inside curb. You always want to try and get to this curb because it really helps hook the car around. If you're having difficulties at this corner, I would recommend starting with trying to hook the car earlier on the curb and then just moving later and later with your entry so you can hook around a bit later. You can see I meet the inside curb pretty much where these orange little bumps on the inside start. Pick up throttle once you get to the curb. That'll help hook the car around the corner. Try and get the steering lock off. I mean, again, you don't want to run wide, but just try and ease it off. Okay, run the car out here. Again, watch out. If you run the middle of the car past the black and white, you will get an off track. So this is pretty much the limit. Back over to the right-hand side now. preparing for the final braking zone of the track, one of the more difficult ones on the crest of the hill here, into the final chicane, Vale Club section. So over fully on the right hand side here, white line nice and early. I like to hold fifth into here. Very, very late brake. Hard hit the brake initially, which we'll show you on Delta because you can see the brake shape here. It's quite tricky with the trace. All right, so now looking at the final chicane here, we can see obviously 3 down changes into second, and then controlling the throttle nicely here on the exit. Just a little bit of throttle to pick the speed back up, and then after that, just lifting a little bit as we turn in here, in sync with when I'm steering through the right-hand side of the corner as well. And then back to full once I get the lock off, pretty much at that point. But with the braking, what's really important here, again, you hit a peak. It's not super like straight to 100 bang, like a straight line, because the problem is here that little bit of a bump on the braking zone. And this is one of the only cars where you can actually brake kind of after the bump. Most cars, you hit the brake, then you hit the bump, and then you continue your braking zone. And normally because of that, you get what looks like a wet brake shape. It always has no peak normally because the bit where you would be higher, you had to be a bit lower because the bump was there, so you couldn't maximize the braking. And then you just end up kind of holding. You don't usually increase the brake. You just kind of end up having a similar brake as opposed to more of a peak. However, here again, we're just being a little bit careful with when you get on the brakes initially, but it is a good reason for why you had to be super late here, because the reward is almost double the effect, right? Because if you can be brave and be late, you can actually brake on a grippy part of the track and not have to deal with the bump as well. So hit the bump about here, and the car's still a little bit unsettled, which is why you can see my brake is not, you can see it's not straight to peak here. I'm just kind of managing, and then now we hit the peak. Now we really hold that brake pressure, make sure you're efficient at this point in the braking zone, and then bleed out as we turn in here. You see I hold a tiny bit of brake. It was a bit cheeky for me, but a tiny bit of brake just to keep the weight on the nose through the left. This is when I've left the left-hand side white line at this point here. But this point of the brake is just as it's turning in, just to keep a little bit of weight on the nose, just to keep it active and tucked in, and then straight on the throttle for the exit. And now for the next part of the corner, really important here to focus on the exit. As opposed to like a GT car or a prototype where you need to really get stopped and hug like the left-hand side here, it's still true, but normally you can't take the right-hander flat, but because we can take the right-hander of this chicane flat, you can really focus on preparing the exit here. Super important to gain time on the braking, as we already discussed. Look to meet the curb about here, kind of behind the end of the sausage curb. Down to second gear, quite a late shift, just get as close to that sausage curb as possible. Bit of throttle between the two. More important, just to get this bit right. And then part lift through here, almost flat for the right-hand part of the chicane. You'll be on throttle. You'll lift a little bit just to help get the nose in, as close as you can to the inside curb. Up to third gear as the wheel spin comes in. Smooth on the steering, can kill a lot of speed not being smooth on the steering here. Use all the track, bring the car back over, shorten the distance to the line, and that is a lap at Silverstone. All right, then, so that brings us towards the end of the video now. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comment section below. You can also find a link to the Coach Dev Academy Discord in the YouTube video description, where you can find more information about setups, coaching, and more lap guide videos just like this one. My name is Bart. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time. See ya.